All right, here we go.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught! Jelani Woods! Touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. Thanks a lot for joining us here on this Tuesday, September 26th on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Of course, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hope you're enjoying the weather. It's been absolutely spectacular the way it's supposed to be as we are heading into the fall season. So looking forward to another great day today, as well as on the show here. Mike DeCourcy will be joining us, Chronic Hoosier, Mike Niziolek. Plenty to talk about. I want to talk about the Heisman race. I'll give you my list. The Ryder Cup is this week. Recruiting, of course, nonstop. The NCAA is recommending removing marijuana, cannabis, from its list of banned drug classes. See what you think of that. I'm shocked. Before we even go in, I'm shocked. That's something the NCAA would normally do 10 years from now, but they're ahead of the state of Indiana, and they're housed in Indiana. Tells you something. But I can't wait to look. That's got some. I'm gonna look at the passing yardage today for what's going on. We'll talk a little bit of IU football as they prepare to go on the road to face the Maryland Terrapins, and I don't think that's going to be a greatly enjoyable trip for the Hoosiers, but they usually seem to bounce back from embarrassing things like how they played against Akron. We'll see. But also the comments coming on. We'll appreciate everybody on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. Don't forget Andy Moore Honda. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Go to andymoorehonda.com to get more to your door. And the best in new and used vehicles. Right now, they've got some great. You have to worry. You worry about 6-7% on getting a new car. Not at Andy Moore. So go there and check that out. Also, the Wow Food Group. Great places like Chop Shop, Market Table, and Restaurant, where each and every Wednesday at 7:05 you can find the fish, Don Fisher, and they have great fish. As a matter of fact, last night I grilled for the first time grouper, and it was delicious. But they have all their seafood is overnighted in. But I grilled grouper in my air fryer, no less, along with some alligator. I'm gonna have to bring this up to with Dustin on Thursday. Although I sent him a photo of it, but we've got this little. He tries to make something nice. I'm like, that's nothing, man. So I'll have to save that one for Thursday. But looking forward to talking to the guys on the show today. Mike Niziolek, of course, and as mentioned, Chronic Hoosier, and Mike DeCourcy. The Ryder Cup coming up. What's the U.S. going to do? Hello to Fred from Easton. JB. Dwayne Fozan. Right at it, my man. How are things going over in Amman? Jordan. Gritty. That's right. Happy birthday to Don Fisher. We appreciate him. He was on yesterday. I meant to say it during the show, had it written down, and it slipped my mind. but I knew he would be much happier that I had forgotten that while he was on. So we can say it now. Happy birthday to Don. There you go. Tony V in Whitehall, Michigan. What is with all the Michiganders? I love it. But, man, there are a ton that tune in via the YouTube. And you can do so, too, if we're not on in a radio station in your area like the great 97.7 The Ref down in Evansville, or 1230, 104.7 WJOB, the voice of the region up in Hammond and Chicago. Crossover on 1380, The Fan in Fort Wayne, and 89.9 WBRO in Marengo. But if we're not on any of those stations, you can always find us on YouTube. Just hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost a thing. And notifications toggle, and it'll tell you when everything's coming up, because we also do specials. We have interviews all the time that go directly to the YouTube show. We have all of our post-game basketball stuff there as well, so you don't want to miss out on any of that. Hit the like button while you're doing it. Go for the trifecta. Jamie from Grand Rapids. Tanis. All right, I missed the first part of what he's answering. Says, are you going to shred them Ninja Turtles? I'm missing out on that one. Alligator goes well in stew. You know, it's good, but it's a little tougher than, it's kind of like the texture of squid, octopus, what's the other word for it? I can't think of it, but which I also enjoy. But Tony V says Michiganders have good taste. You ain't lying, brother, and I love Michigan, the state. It's incredible, great place. There are so many places in Michigan that I wish I could visit or would have visited. Mackinac Island, just all around me. I've been to Ann Arbor. I've been to East Lansing. Hell, I had a rodeo in East Lansing once in January. That sucked because being a roper, we had to warm our horses up for quite some time. And guess where that was? Outside in like 20-something degree weather. It stunk. Mike jumping on. 5 lefts. Tony V, as I mentioned. Tennis and Pete. Robert P. Calamari. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you very much. Man, love. Everybody's on it. That's why I love it. Tennis says Gator needs braising and cooked low and slow. Yeah. So the tougher the protein, the longer you need to break down. And that sounds about right. I made it in my air fryer, which you can do it slowly. I didn't. So that was probably there, but it was good. My first introduction to Gator was I went to the Sugar Bowl. Gee whiz, this had to be back around 2010, 11, something like that. Louisville was playing Florida in New Orleans, and they had Gator sausages at the then Mercedes Superdome. And oh my God, they were like a big, like a big hot dog. Whoo! Me and a buddy of mine, Kyle, we had about 3 of those suckers each. We spent $50 between us on eating those things. They were so good. I looked them up trying to find them online when I got home, but to no avail. I could not find them. So there's that. But and I'm going to pick this up with Mike DeCourcy as far as the Heisman situation. But my Heisman list has Michael Penix Jr. at the top. Number 1. Last weekend was his worst weekend. Who'd they play? I've already forgotten. Daggone it. That's bad memory. Not the Washington Commanders. There we go. Yeah, they just beat Cal. Okay. And let's see. Here's the scores of their 4 games. Their first game over Boise State, no less. 56-19. Boise State's a good program. Then they played Tulsa and Kevin Wilson. 43-10. Then they traveled to Michigan State, where Michael Penix threw 20 consecutive completions. That was 2019. I was there for that. I think that tied the Big Ten record. Or may have been one short, but I think it may tied it. Then this past weekend, California, 59-32. So they're averaging about 50 points a game through 4 games. I know that this is, I remember seeing a stat. It's the first time in, only the second time in history that they've had 400 yards offense, I think, in their first 4 games. But I love everything what Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix are doing. So happy for his success. It's fun to watch. Both great guys. Kalen was on with us. I'll get him back on. Justin says the Penix situation is depressing. Not at all. Not at all. I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy to watch him. It's fun to watch him. I watch them. Watch that team. I enjoy it. But let's see. I'm trying to find out last week what they did, which I know it's not everybody is interested in that. But I'm enjoying it. Michael Penix is just killing people. First half, I thought I'd missed the game because when I got it up, it was like 35-0, and that turned out to be halftime, which was funny. I'm like, oh. So there's that. But statistically, he is still the NCAA leader in passing yards by 226 yards. That's a game for some people. That's a full game and he has basically missed a full game. He has not played in 4 total quarters of these games, which is a full game in essence. 16 touchdowns. Let me see where that leads. Man, that also looks to be the leading in the country. So he leads the country with 16 touchdowns in addition to yardage. 2 picks. That's not. You think this guy's not going to get drafted? So many people thought that he never had a shot because of his injuries early on. And some of his injuries had nothing to do with Indiana's offensive line, I don't think. Well, obviously the one where he ran out of bounds and just the freak knee injury. But we've got lots more coming up. Mike DeCourcy will join us. Looking forward to it. We'll continue this conversation on the backside. Don't forget Indiana Sports Meet Radio, brought to you by the Chop Shop. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Chris, where is Swanton Overs? I didn't realize I took you out because I didn't realize it was a daggone commercial time, brother. My bad.
It's okay. No worries. I looked up where we're staying, and it's at a Hilton Garden Inn in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah, well, I don't know where that is. I was just curious.
Mike's here. Well, throw him in.
Yes. Mike, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Good. Well, good as that can be. Oh, yeah, I got to go get something to prop my leg.
Okay.
Oh, I think I pulled dorsal meniscus.
Morning, Mike. Whenever he gets back, it'll be time for us to go live again.
Okay. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, Mike, I was just talking about Michael Penix
and
the year he's having, and to me, he's my number one in the Heisman race right now.
Hey, Jim, it's time to go live. So if you guys just want to pick up right there, I'll
yep.
count you down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Of course, coming to you from the 18th fairway of the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. Joined now by the great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Make sure you're giving him a follow on all of his content. It's the Sporting News. Mike, how are you, sir?
I am very well, Jim. How are you this morning?
Good. Plenty of relevant things that have popped up to talk about. The Ryder Cup is this weekend, which is always fun and great debate. The NCAA recommends removing marijuana from its banned drug classes, which shocks me because they're not the last to do it. And it's not 10 years from now. I'm like, what? I'm like, what is going on? I go, they're ahead of the curve on some things here. I go, what is going on? But and I pointed out that they're doing it before the state of Indiana, which everybody else will as well, but they're housed in the state of Indiana. How ironic that is. First, I was talking about the Heisman race, and Michael Penix is just my guy. Of course, people are going to say, "Oh, he played in Indiana." Yeah, and I wish him the best, and I wish Mike and Kalen DeBoer the best. He's a great guy, great coach. He comes on with us. Michael's it's just a great success story to persevere. No quarterback. I guarantee you, no Heisman candidate ever that I can recall has gone through what he's gone through, and to be in that position, he went through 3 season-ending injuries.
3.
There was a shoulder issue early on. I can't remember the exact second one. The third was when he was running out of bounds and his knee.
I remember the knee, obviously. That was,
but
that changed. Let's be honest. The knee injury changed Indiana's program.
Yeah.
It did. If that doesn't happen, everything's different. And I feel bad for Hoosiers fans because that injury, just everything. If he doesn't get hurt that year, so much changes. And so that's a shame, but I'm really happy for him and that he's been able to come back and do these things. And I hope he remains healthy through the rest of this year so he can get a real shot at what's out there for him. And you mentioned that he's your leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy. And the Heisman really frustrates me because it's long since stopped being about the best player. It's not anymore. It really is.
No, it's about the most hyped.
And the most hyped quarterback as well. I mean, it doesn't matter what position, you could, like, I was thinking about this when the Notre Dame Ohio State game was coming up over the weekend, and thinking about how when I was a voter in the 80s, boy, that's a sentence. When I was a voter in the 80s, Tim Brown won the Heisman with very middling stats because it was so obvious that he was the best player. He could do things that others couldn't do, and the voter said, you know what? I mean, he's the best player, so let's give him the trophy. And then they stopped doing that not long after and started making it always about a quarterback and always about the most valuable player. And I don't think that's what the Heisman was meant to be. It wasn't really meant to be the most valuable player. It was meant to be the best player. And for a while it was, and then it stopped. But if somebody's going to win it, I hope that, one of the cool things about it is that Michael will get a shot to be on the same field as the reigning Heisman winner. I believe it's November 4th with Caleb Williams. Yeah, and so that'll be a huge game if they both continue on their current tracks, and he'll have a real shot. And it would be really cool if he's able to go out there and continue to perform as he has, and maybe even prevail and get that trophy. Because even though it's not the trophy that it should be and it used to be, it's still an amazing honor and one that you can dine on for a very long time.
Absolutely. And I think that this year they probably will give it to the best player, only because I'm trying to think of who are some guys that should be up there that aren't even really being considered.
Well, I mean, I looked at last year and I thought Marvin Harrison Jr. was clearly the best player in college football. He was just astoundingly good last year. And it helped, obviously, that he had an elite quarterback to play with. And he's not getting quite that level of quarterback play this year, as well as he's getting so much defensive attention that Abuka is doing a tremendous job for Ohio State and getting all the stats. So it's going to be hard for him. And they also got banged up on Saturday night inadvertently. It was impressive that he was able to come back and play after it looked like one of those, when he got rolled up on, one of those really bad injuries, and he wound up being able to continue to play. But that kind of player, whether it's him or someone else, just doesn't get the kind of consideration that they used to. I just don't think Caleb Williams had the impact on college football last year that Marvin Harrison Jr. did. But because he's a quarterback and he had great stats, he won. That's how it works.
It's also the helmet that they're wearing. That makes a huge difference to me. USC, Notre Dame.
But it didn't help Marvin Harrison because
he's a receiver. Yeah, it's a receiver. And it's like was it Travis Hunter, right?
Yes, Travis Hunter was hurt last week for Colorado. The kind of player, again, that should be in that conversation.
Exactly.
But of course, in his case, winds up getting injured.
Yeah, but had he not, that would have been interesting to see and watch them ignore him. And like, wow, how do you not say that a guy who is scoring on both sides of the ball and impacting the game on both sides of the ball for the first time in over 100 years is not the best player in football?
Well, that reminds me of another voting thing from the 80s when Sports Illustrated, I think, started the campaign to try to get a guy named Gordon Lochbaum considered for the Heisman because he played both ways. I think he played for Holy Cross.
You can't win a Heisman with a name like Lochbaum, man.
but you shouldn't be able to win a Heisman when you're playing for Holy Cross. I mean, it's not the highest level of the game. But there was a campaign for him, and I remember, like, I voted in one of the first Heisman straw polls. It was a Rocky Mountain News production, and they were a they were a Scripps Howard paper like we were in Pittsburgh. And so we voted every week. And one guy was like, he was so insistent that he was voting for Gordon Lockbaum because he played both ways. So, the hype machine, the hype train began a long time ago. And that idea of playing both ways, it ultimately did produce a Heisman with Charles Woodson in Michigan. But I think when Woodson won it, I think that was really about the last time that we saw the award really go to the best player and not just the most hyped quarterback. Some of those quarterbacks were great along the way, but I remember in, I think 2003, it was between Larry Fitzgerald and Jason White of Oklahoma. And like Jason White, I mean, Gino Torretta. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, these were not great players. They were significant players on great teams, and their teams would not have won without them playing well, but they were not historically great players.
No. Have you ever been on in England?
Have I ever been on in England on the radio?
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, during the World Cup last year, I think it was, they had me on for a story that I wrote about Lionel Messi.
Well, we're on in England right now.
Wow.
Chris is over in England listening to us. We appreciate you, brother. I love it. Well, in addition to that, we've got Fozan listening in, Ahmad Jordan.
Nice.
A ton of Michiganders, which really that one blows my mind because there are a lot, and I love every one of you, and I love everybody. I don't care where you are, but some things blow my mind. Tevin Coleman. All right, I'll use an Indiana example because he had Indiana on his chest. How many running backs from the Big Ten that have rushed for over 2,000 yards have not been invited to New York? First of all, how many 2,000-yard rushers have there been? There's at the time he did it, that was only the 18th time it had been accomplished in the NCAA. Right. But he did not even get an invite, and he's doing this against Michigan, against Ohio State, against Penn State, and that drove me insane. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with these people? It was the same with Anthony Thompson, but I think that Anthony Thompson missed for one reason and one reason only, because Indiana couldn't kick a 23-yard field goal and beat Purdue, and they ended up with a 4-5 record or whatever it was. They were one game under, and historically only Paul Horning's the only guy to ever win it from a losing team on Notre Dame. But Anthony Thompson was the same thing. He was putting up stupid numbers against the best of the Big Ten. Right. But yeah, he almost got it. But Tevin Coleman to me is a perfect example of someone that was completely ignored. And I'm like, you guys are out of your mind.
I will say this, Jim. One of the biggest problems with the Heisman trophy is the electorate is too large. There aren't 1,000 people who have expertise in college football to the level that you need to correctly identify the best player in a sport that has 133 teams. You know, and that's if you don't consider Gordon Lockbaum's team. There's 133 teams. So there's no question that the electorate is too vast, and that's why you wind up with that hype machine, that contagion being such an important part of who ultimately wins it.
Yeah, back in the day, guys, you could have won it from Army, from all kind, Holy Cross, different schools. That will never, ever, ever, ever happen again, which is kind of sad. But got Chuck the Dragon on. That's a new one. I love that. Who have you seen? You're always our level mind here. Where do you sing for the Heisman early in the season? We're 4 games in, so the third of the way through. Ironically, I was looking at Caleb Williams and Michael's numbers. Michael has substantially more passing yards, but their stats are dang near identical.
Huh.
Michael's completing 75% of his passes, which is crazy. Averaging 12 yards per pass, but Caleb Williams is right there in the stats other than the total yards. He's 430 yards behind. He's an entire game behind Michael Penix. And in addition, Michael Penix has only played 3/4 out of every game that he's been in. So he's missed an entire game, which I'm sure Caleb has too.
One of the reasons, honestly, Jim, why I think it's early to really be serious, because Washington hasn't played the real teams they'll play. There's a lot of really good teams in the Pac-12, and they'll play not all of them, but a good chunk of them, including, as I mentioned, the SC game that's coming up. They have Oregon in a couple of weeks at home, October 14th. So they'll have some serious games that they have to play. Utah comes into their building. That's a tough stretch that they have with Washington on the road and then Utah at home the 4th and 11th of November. So there's a lot to be decided on their front. But Michael's played well, and it's trending well. And so when they get into those bigger challenges, we'll see how it goes. But I think the fact that so many teams play lesser schedules at the start of the year, there have been very few Notre Dame, Ohio State games to this point in the college football season. The good games, the best games, will come up this month and next, or I should say we're about to turn the calendar, so will come up next month and the month after, I guess. October and November will really decide who the teams are that are going to have a chance at the playoff, and it's hard for a player from a team that isn't headed in that direction to win the Heisman. Although, as I said, Caleb Williams did win it last year.
And they don't like giving the Heisman to players twice. Has only happened once, and I don't expect that to happen again unless he's going to have to be far and away.
But he's got the opportunity, Jim. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yep.
He's in a league that's Caleb Williams is in a league that is loaded with top 25 teams. He's got Notre Dame on the schedule for the glamour of that, and we know now Notre Dame's a terrific football team. Whatever their record ends up being, they're a significant football team. They showed that Saturday night, so that'll be a real challenge for Williams as well. He's going to have to earn a second trophy if he's going to get it, and it is hard to win it 2 in a row. One, because you have to be great 2 years in a row. You could look back to 74, 75. Archie Griffin wasn't the best player in college football in 75. It was either
he played for Ohio State.
He did, and he had one in the bank, and they weren't buying Ricky Bell, and they weren't buying Tony Dorsett playing at Pitt. And I say Tony Dorsett because he was still Dorsett.
Because it's how it was said, Dorsett. Yes.
But those were the two best players in college
just
football.
Just like Joe Theismann was actually Joe Theismann.
Yes, right.
A lot of people don't know they changed the school, right? The school suggested you change your pronunciation of your name to Theismann so it rhymes with Heisman.
There was a wonderful person and great sports information director at Notre Dame named Roger Baldessari, an absolute legend in the business, the probably the best SID there's ever been, who had managed to, even with Notre Dame's unbelievable media attention, always managed to get. Because when I was covering Penn State, if I wanted to talk to Joe Paterno, no way, wasn't talking to me. I was 100 miles away or something in the second biggest paper in the state, couldn't get to talk to Joe Paterno by myself. But when I wanted to talk to Jerry Faust or Lou Holtz, I got to sit down with them because of Roger Baldessari. So he was unbelievable. But Roger and his successor, John Heiser, they were both great. Roger was the one who came up with the idea to change the pronunciation of Theismann to Theismann because it made it possible to have the campaign remember that Theismann rhymes with Heisman. And that actually happened. That is a true story.
Yeah, that's funny with some of the things that they do. Let's see. I think I was done with all that stat stuff, but yeah, I'm just loving what Michael's. Oh, I was talking about the schedule. Yes, they have Arizona, and then I think they have a bye. But holy crap, they have Oregon after that on October 14th. Then they get a break with Arizona State, and a break with Stanford, I guess.
Stanford.
But here is the last 4 games of their season. And Oregon is currently in the top 10. Of course, they're going to drop because of the loss to – no, that was Oregon State that lost. Here's the last 4 games. At USC, home to Utah, at Oregon State, home to Washington State, all 4 ranked teams, all 4 good teams.
Yes.
And the Pac-12 is far and away the best conference in all of football this year, right now.
And what you see in there is an illustration of what has been wrong with college football's playoff system forever, and that will be repaired next year. Just too late for the Pac-12 to have any part in it, or likely to have any part in it, or at least the Pac-12 as it is now. Because they're going to go through all four games at the end of that year in a row that are all extraordinarily challenging. And if you lose 2 of them, you're done. And you maybe could lose 2 of them and still win your league, which should be enough to get you into a real playoff that involves the most, most of the qualified teams. But that's not the way it will be this year. Thank goodness it's ending. It is a shame that the Pac-12 didn't recognize what that automatic bid could do for them, and what the future could have been if they hadn't been so arrogant as to turn down $30+ million from ESPN.
Mike DeCourcy is with us here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. We've got much more coming back. We'll talk about, he says the delusional UK fans where he lives think they have a chance at the Boozer brothers that are 100%. We'll see. You never know. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
What he was just saying, and we probably won't get this on the air, but if he's still listening, I don't know who's going where, but I do know that DeJuan Wagner's son is going to Kentucky this year, not to Memphis and not to Louisville, where he played. Wani played at Memphis and Milt played at Louisville. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have any idea what the Boozer brothers are going to do, but I do know that that happens. So things could happen.
It does. Part of the Louisville thing was they were really in flux.
Yeah, but their own grandfather works there.
DJ, I mean,
Milt works on the staff at Louisville. So he was, so even with
there's a difference between uncle and dad, I think.
All right, guys, there is. And we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Mike DeCourcy with the Sporting News and Big Ten Network were with us. Make sure you following him on social media and all of his content in the Sporting News. Always great reads. College basketball recruiting always happening, and right now coaches are going everywhere visiting. There's visits going on. I know Indiana's had a trio from Montverde up in the last couple of weeks. Liam McNeely, the prime target of that, in addition to Derek Queen. It looks good for Indiana for Liam McNeely, but it's down to Indiana and Kansas. So don't ever count your chickens before they're hatched, let me tell you. And then you've got Boogie Fland, and that appears to be down to between Kentucky and Indiana. So Indiana involved in some great battles, but there's so many others that are continuing to go on, Mike.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just saw yesterday that Kansas picked up another perimeter player LeBaron Philon. I don't know if that's how he says his name. Philon, 4-star point guard. So they're continuing to rack up players. I don't think that has an impact necessarily on this recruitment, but it is interesting to note how much success Kansas continues to have in the recruiting business. And so they're tough to beat. There's no question. And it's, as I said a week ago, it's going to be tough to beat Kentucky for Boogie Fland with Kentucky's history of success with point guards. When's the last time that John had a point guard who didn't become a significant NBA player? There's probably few that didn't. You go back to Derrick Rose and on through to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and even to last year. So many first-round picks. So they've got a great history at that position, and they can sell that to Boogie and see if he buys it.
And it's kind of funny. These guys have gotten good, and I'm talking about the players. They've gotten good at being coy. They've gotten good at they're schooled at giving answers that are very political, I should say, because they can ride that line, man. I was reading some stuff yesterday. I'm like, I just started laughing and shaking my head. I'm like going, this dude's ready to be a politician, man. He can just speak out of both sides and never know which way they're going. So, which is good for them, I guess. It may keep they're either enjoying it or it's a way to keep the pressure off.
What it also is, Jim, is it's a way to up the price. Not that you're for sale, but that, with the way NIL is now, you want to make sure that you're getting the best opportunities, let's put it that way, at whatever school you choose. So you want to make sure that the schools that are interested in you are truly interested in you. And so you sort of up that idea, that salesmanship of yourself to anyone that is coming to recruit you.
It's kind of funny. Carlos Boozer has two sons. One, they I think have taken a trip to Kentucky.
They have,
but
they've actually been pictured. This is what amazes me is how
pictures in all the jerseys and stuff.
Yes, it's amazing. It feels weird because if you don't choose that school, there's a picture of you somewhere with, against the team you're going to play in the championship game or something. It always strikes me as strange. But yes, there are pictures out there of the Boozer twins in Kentucky outfits. Absolutely.
I've always had an issue. I'm like, that is the dumbest thing in the world. Put a T-shirt on them or something, but that just because that's always going to be there. But Cameron, one of the sons, must be just like him. He's a 6'8" power forward. So he's got. Then his other son, Cade, is a 6'4" point guard. So he's got
Cameron
a nice little mix.
Cameron's actually has more varied skills than Carlos, because when Carlos came up, it was like if you had his build and body and strength and toughness, you stayed by the bucket and did your thing. And that's what Carlos did for a lot of his career. He ultimately expanded somewhat as an NBA player, but he was a true low post guy. And his son is much more varied, has a much more varied game, because that's how you have to play now. If you're a 6'8" guy 6'8", 6'9" guy like Carlos was, and you very rarely leave the lane, you're just not, you're not going to be a coveted prospect. But now you're going to get a chance to be an extraordinary player if you're able to play away from the goal as the son is.
Yeah, here's a picture. I know that those listening on radio can't see it, but here's a picture of Carlos Boozer going in for a dunk against Indiana in the 2012 regional in Lexington, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
And then 6'4" AJ Moye said, "I don't think so, baby. Not in the house."
Yes, he did.
That is my second favorite sports photo of all time.
That is a great shot.
Mainly because AJ was 6'4" and Carlos
maybe
was 6'8", and it's like, wow, that moment was just a great. I told AJ's been on with us a lot, and every time I tell him, I go, that would be wallpaper in my house all around. It would be that wallpaper just in repetitive fashion. It's just such a great picture. My first favorite photo was Muhammad Ali standing over top of
Sonny Liston.
Sonny Liston,
yes,
when he was saying, "Get up," and just love that. That's always been my favorite photo. Man, that's a close second. But
well, I'll tell you, if you have a second, I'll tell you a story. I was on press row that night at Rupp Arena.
I was there. I was not on press row. I was actually there as a fan.
Okay, I was sitting near the Indiana bench with Andy Katz, now with the Big Ten Network, and Andy, I think at that point was at ESPN, and we were sitting there, and we both knew Mike, and he turned around to us about midway through the second half, and of course they were huge underdogs. That Duke team was reigning champions, had everybody back but Shane Battier, #1 in the country, and he turned to us as things were going well, and he said, "We're winning this game." I'll never forget that. He said it right to us. "We're winning this game," and he turned out to be right.
Yeah. Did you see Todd Leary climb up on top of the press row while he was doing the radio show?
I think I probably was working the locker room press conference.
No, this was at the end of the game while it was still going. I think Don had to tell him to get down.
No, my eyes were on the Duke procession off the floor because there was some controversy happening there. I can't remember what it was, but I remember watching them walk off the floor. I think one of the Duke players might have been mad at the ref or something like that. I can't remember now, but something like that.
Another thing I remember, a great photo, but it's actually a great video, is the shot of Mike Davis when Dane Fife fouled Jason Williams, I think. He fouls Jason Williams on a 3-point shot that goes in that would have allowed them to tie the game. And they show Mike, and he just turns around and gets onto his knees. He's on his knees into a chair, just like doing this. He's like, we had it. And then thank goodness Jason Williams couldn't shoot free throws to save his life and missed that one. And that went on to go on. But Cooper Flagg, a big name. He's going to be visiting UConn this weekend. So that's another guy that a big name that I'm going to be shocked if he doesn't end up at Kansas. But
have you seen him play yet?
I have not.
Oh my goodness! I mean, he is just ridiculous. He's the guy I've been waiting for a long time. I mean, we have seen some very good American players, a lot of good ones, and then some have built themselves up from kind of off the radar. But this young man is spectacular. He has everything. Dynamism, skill, toughness. I think he has a chance to be legitimately great in the way that guys like Durant and LeBron and players like that, maybe not to LeBron's level, but that kind of game-changing player, the kind of player Zion could be if he would get serious about his body and that sort of thing. That he has that level of talent, and we haven't seen that level of talent very often succeed lately. A lot of the best players who come into high level basketball are not succeeding, while we've seen guys like Steph Curry become the stars who aren't as well known. Dame Lillard coming out of Weber State. We're seeing a lot of those guys still become great players, but the top prospects have not been succeeding at the same rate as they did 20 years ago. So Cooper Flagg, I have a lot of hope for him to become that sort of player.
A couple of guys that Malachi Moreno, in addition to Braylon Mullins, who has been getting a lot of attention lately from Greenfield, Indiana. Both of those guys heading up to South Bend this weekend. Micah Shrewsbury doing a great job. He's already has, I think, 3 2024 recruits landed, and he's making a run. I mean, he's Trent Sisley, I know, who was just in Indiana this past weekend, visiting with a couple of others. He's heading there, in addition to every place else that has him on a list, which is everybody. But Braylon Mullins has been making hay lately. Indiana, he's got offers from Indiana, Iowa, and I'm sure an offer will come from Notre Dame on the visit this weekend.
Yeah, I think that I think Mike is going to do a great job at Notre Dame. He's a terrific basketball coach. Does a wonderful job. He did an amazing job with Penn State last season. Some of those guys were still there. Some of the guys came in. Some of them were transfers. Some of them were high school guys. They have a great eye for talent on that staff. They're going to do very well. It may take a little while. I don't know that they're going to go often for the instant fix. But, it's funny. People assume that Notre Dame won't be at all involved in transfers. Remember, Mike Bray's first successes in the early 2000s began with a team that featured Danny Miller, a transfer from Maryland. So we're talking 20 years before the transfer portal. They were doing good things with transfers at Notre Dame way back then. So they can get guys a lot of different directions. I just don't know that they're going to be involved in the I hate to use this phrase, but the bidding
war.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that too often. But I do think they'll accept transfers that fit their program and fit their university, and they'll be successful with them as well as the high school guys.
Indiana football is in a real precarious situation. They're not playing great football. As a matter of fact, they were booed last week by the sparse crowd that was remaining in a very lucky to win over Akron, because they had to use their punter as a backup kicker who missed a 32-yard field goal, which would have won the game for them. And the schedule gets much more difficult for Indiana as they go forward. Very unlikely to make a bowl game. I think it's going to be hard. They did a great job in the transfer portal, but I think it's going to be extraordinarily hard going forward to hold on to a lot of those guys. And Indiana can do nothing. They have a $20 million buyout until December 1st of 2024. So fans have to know that they're going to go through it this year, and they're probably going to go through it next year. But the losses are going to be staggering. I mean, people in the comments talking about, how much money, which that's not a great comparison, but Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State make every home game because they've got 100,000 seat stadiums that are filled. But
right.
Indiana is losing money probably on football, and that is supposed to be the sport driving your athletics program.
I have a hard time. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you do the accounting. I mean, they're not clearly making as much money as they could because Memorial Stadium isn't filling up. And but when you consider how much money football generates television-wise, they're probably not losing. They're probably making a lot of money on football.
If you count the Big Ten money,
yeah, but that's part of the pool. They're certainly generating a lot of revenue in football just by fielding a team in the Big Ten. But they're missing out on making more money because the team's not been successful for the last year or two. And it's a beautiful place to watch a football game. And Indiana's a great campus to revisit if you're an alum. But the team just hasn't been able to get any spark, and goes back to what we talked about before with the Penix injury really changing everything. I mean, you remember the games that they played against Michigan State and Penn State, I think in the 21 season, when Cincinnati, those games were competitive games. But when Penix got hurt, it just, everything seems to change. And they are now in a difficult circumstance, and it's hard to get things jumping when you play in a division that has 3 of the 10 best teams in the country, and you're going to have to play them all. That's probably right? 3 of the 10 best teams in the country, and you got to play all 3 of them. Next year will be different when they remove the divisions. You may still get a difficult schedule, you may not, because I don't know exactly how they're going to shake that out. But you won't necessarily have that automatic of having to play those 3. And this year you happen to be playing them in a year when all of them are up. I don't think Ohio State is as high a level as it's been, but it's still one of the better teams in the country. And then Penn State seems to be at a level they haven't been for a little while. And Michigan seems to be riding on that same plane as they have each of the previous 2 seasons. So it's a real challenge for the Hoosiers to try to survive in that. If you had them in the West, I mean, the West hasn't been really good so far this year.
Let's just be honest. The West sucks. They're awful. It's awful. Good God, it's awful. Boy, that's a whole conversation we could have. Well, unfortunately, we've got to take a break for coming up. But Mike, thank you so much, my friend, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Jim. I'll look forward to it.
Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. And we've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio in the next hour. We'll be back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Oh, yeah, that was some great stuff there. Great conversation with Mike. Oh, yeah, and I want to bring this up. And I'm gonna talk about. Oh, speaking of which, we got some koozies coming in, people, and I'm gonna have to go back and figure out the weekly winners. Get you a koozie sent out on the college pick'em. We'll have to go back and figure that out. It was never me, I can tell you that. Ooh, but we can look at this week's schedule. Florida at Kentucky, picked. Clemson at Syracuse, picked. Ooh, Texas at A&M. I'm going to skip that for now. The South Alabama Jaguars, coached by Kane Womack, taking on the James Madison Dukes, the undefeated James Madison Dukes. Oh, man, I'm going to hold off on that. The South Florida Bulls travel to Navy.
All right, Jim, we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Can't thank everybody enough for being along for the ride. Lots to get to. Just finished up with great discussion with Mike DeCourcy on various things. Don't forget to go to ESPN, and that's just on your computer. If you're on your phone, you can still do it. You just got to figure it out. I did it for somebody the other day, but on the computer, just go to ESPN, and to the right, you'll see a fantasy tab at the top, and you just hit that and then scroll down to the college pick'em of 2023, and it'll bring up. And if you haven't signed in, then you'll have to create an account. It's what is our group? ISB Radio. But then you there's a password, and it's just B-Town 1 2 3 4. But right now, I think I went over yesterday, the leaders. There is a single leader at the top, We have a leader. And is you going to bring it up? Where's the group? Come on, bring up the group. I've figured out how I could do that, I guess. You got to be smarter than the computer. But anyway, we do have a single leader now, and that's kind of amazing. With all the people that are enjoying it, jumping on there. I had a terrible week last week at 5-5, and it has cost me dearly. As a matter of fact, if I'd just gone like 8-2 like I should have, take 3 off of that, 9, I'd be 31-9 and be kind of in there. I'd be tied for third, man. But our boy Andrew Jones, I think isn't that my man Doc? I think that's my eye doctor, whom I desperately need to see. My right eye it's like looking through, if you took a couple of pieces of screen and wadded them up and put some pieces in your eye. That's what it's like right now, looking through this thing called a floater. But he's in first all by himself by a game. But Justin is right behind him. And then there are several: Taterology, Caleb, Mark, Bill O, Fred, and Jason in Fort Wayne, all right there hanging tight. But this week's games, I've already started to pick mine. I've picked most of them, but Florida and Kentucky, Clemson, boy, that was a tough loss for them at home against Florida State, and a great win for Florida State. Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher brought in former Louisville coach Bobby Petrino, who was an great offensive mind. Jimbo Fisher is a really good offensive mind. They're not doing good. And boy, if I were to bet that game, I would take Arkansas rather, definitely in the points. And then I may take a little small one on the side, money line. That could be an upset. But how about the South Alabama Jaguars? Kane Wommack. They're 2-2, but they go to Stillwater, Oklahoma, and beat Oklahoma State. They beat the Mullet. It's pretty cool. But and then LSU at Ole Miss. That's a tricky one. LSU is good, but I think they could be poised for an upset. When you travel like that, that's going to be. And then they put a tough game in here. 2-2 Troy Trojans against 4-0 Georgia State. Oh, Notre Dame at Duke. Have to go with Duke on that. West Virginia at TCU. Yeah, I'm going with TCU. So I think I've got them all picked. I've already made my picks. That's rare that I do it this early, but make sure you jump on and just go to the ESPN. And then go, once it comes up on the far right, you'll see fantasy tab. Slide down to College Pick'em 2023, ISB radio, and then B-Town 1, 2, 3, 4. Andy's got a comment that the IU staff worked really hard to get Trent Sisley on campus last weekend. They didn't want him at Notre Dame for that big game environment of Notre Dame and Ohio State. They wanted him there, believe me. Just one of the little battles that are won, but that's partly because they desperately wanted him there. And I've been told by a very good source that they desperately wanted him to come. But the reason why Trent didn't go is because he had already made this commitment, and he does not break commitments. As a matter of fact, this person told me that if there was something big like this, but he had there was a high school event, he will not skip the high school event. He is basically a man of integrity. Amazing for to see that type of maturity. That's somebody you want on your team. That guy is going to be a leader. He's probably going to be a leader mostly by example. And there's nothing better. Trent Sisley is definitely someone that Indiana wants. It's not it'd be nice. No, they want Trent Sisley. I mean, Liam McNeely and Trent Sisley, unless McNeely is a one and done, it would be cool to see them playing together. Man. But Trent Sisley had a good visit, of course. And so, but now he has a busy schedule that he will be traveling on. See if I can pull up. I know he's going to a ton of different every week. He's got to visit every week someplace now that he's got to go to. And I can't remember exactly where it is, but I'll find it quickly here. But I know that he is going to Notre Dame. He does have a visit coming up to Purdue, I believe. Where did that go? He's got an Iowa official visit coming up. Let's see. Creighton may be getting involved. Super busy, absolutely. Well, I can't find my the list I had. I put it out, but he's going every week for the next 5 weeks. He's going to either Purdue, Notre Dame. He was at Indiana, so that included in that. Indiana, Purdue, Notre Dame. There may be an Iowa. There's probably an Iowa visit and a Michigan State visit in there. So he's a busy guy, and he is wanted across the Big Ten. But Indiana wants him. It's way too early to predict that. I think Indiana gets Trent Sisley, but you never know. Like Mike DeCourcy just said, you just don't know what happens, what changes. Indiana is doing well. I'm sure he'll watch what happens with Mackenzie Mbako. That's the position that Trent would be playing. Then he'll be able to watch what they do with Liam McNeely. I'm confident that Indiana will land Liam McNeely. So we'll see about that, but we'll find out. Fred says J.D. Campbell's perspectives on IU football would be interesting. Yeah, I'm just not sure how, being a former employee and someone who is paying his retirement, I'm not sure. Don Fisher is great because Don will just tell you what he's thinking. And he does, because he ain't getting fired. Who the hell is going to fire Don Fisher? I want to see the man who can even think about firing Don Fisher. They would get run out of town on a rail. So Don has, after 50 years, he has the right and the ability to tell it like it is. He's not, it's like, I have the same belief. What do you want me to do? Lie to you? No, I'm not going to do that. I've learned to try to tamp it down a little bit in the regards of just saying it without making it sound worse than it is, but Indiana football is in a serious situation. I know someone earlier said, it's too early to give up on IU football. He says Trent has two sisters already at IU. Actually, he has one sister and a brother at IU, a brother that played basketball at Wright State and could walk on at IU. He's been asked to walk on at IU by Woody, but he's just wanting to focus on school, kind of done with basketball. But he was asked, I think his name's Ethan. He was asked by Mike Woodson to walk on to the IU team. So there's that. But Indiana football is in a bad situation. It's not about giving up on IU football. It's about what you see on the product on the field. I know they have. I've said this a lot. They had the talent to be more than a bowl team. I think this team had the talent to win at least 7 games. But talent is not everything, unfortunately. It has to be maneuvered right and guided correctly. And I think that's been a serious, serious problem. I'm not going to lie to you. I think Walt Bell has just really been a bust. I hate laying blame on people, but it has to fall somewhere. It falls someplace. It's not magic dust. It just floats away. It's a problem, and there's a reason that it's a problem. Indiana's issues in the red zone are unbelievable, horrible. They ran some great plays at the end of the third and fourth overtime periods against Akron, and I was like, where the hell was that against Louisville? That would have won the game. I got to get off my soapbox. We got Chronic Hoosier up next. We've got lots more as well. We'll be back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Chronic, how are you, brother?
I am doing well, Jim. How's it going, man?
Oh, I had to climb off my soapbox.
It's deserved.
I might climb back on, don't worry.
I tell you what, it's a long season.
It's not about, like I said, it's not about giving up. They have the freaking talent. I know they do. You can't play as well as they did in the second half against Louisville. And that overlooking opponent, that was horse crap. I'm not buying that.
I'll tell you what got me on that comment. It's too soon. It's entirely too soon after just a couple years ago when we heard they spent the entire offseason thinking that they had made it and just didn't take it serious and then proceeded to lay an egg. There's too many leaders on that team who were part of that gigantic egg laying to let that happen again. And if the players aren't going to stop it, the coaches, because there's still enough staff that was present for that, not the least of which being Tom Allen. You can play that card once. You can play it once. When you go back to that well, you've crossed a Rubicon in my mind. Because let's be honest, ain't no Indiana football team ever been good enough to overlook anybody.
No. That's the whole thing. Like how could you even use that as an excuse? Because there's no way it's true. There's no way. We ready?
We go live. You might as well take this live. We go live in 5, 4, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. It's Tuesday. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you. Without you, we've got no reason to be here, of course. Chronic Hoosier joining me now, and always a special treat. Chronic, you were sitting in the green room. You got to hear me up on my soapbox about Indiana football. Someone said it's too early to give up, and it's not. And I'm not a fan, so it's not giving up or not. I'm just recognizing I'd love to see them win. I'd love to see them go to a bowl game, which they have the talent to do, but I don't think they have the coaching to do that. And I specifically have called out Walt Bell because the blame has to fall someplace. It just does. And their complete ineptitude in the red zone is mind-boggling, especially when I saw those couple of plays like in the third and the fourth overtime. I'm like, wow, those were beautiful, beautiful plays. And one of those is the one where Jalen Lucas was so wide open, I'm screaming, throw him the damn ball. It was nuts. But this is not going to get better for Indiana because their schedule is about to get worse. I think they're going to get shredded in College Park next week. Then they're going to get shredded 2 weeks after that by Michigan. That can't be good for the psyche, but it's damn sure not good for the record.
No, and as we were talking beforehand, we heard in the post game, and let's be honest, this is probably the most disappointing win in my memory. I've never seen a win that felt so much like a loss. And, credit to the team for figuring it out and for getting the job done at the end. Admittedly, I couldn't stick around halfway through the fourth. I'd seen enough. I've now been present both times the Hoosiers have worn black jerseys in Memorial Stadium. And, I'll full admit, I think it's the best alternate jersey we've ever worn.
I love it.
Unlike the color rush or whatever else, I'm a big fan of the black. And I say this with every shred of my existence: burn those jerseys. They're cursed. Don't ever break out black again. I don't care. The best thing you got, and you just proceeded to play the worst winning football Indiana's ever seen. And, to put salt in the wound, to listen to the coaching staff say in the press conference afterwards that they just knew that they could tell throughout practice in the week that the team wasn't locked in, wasn't mentally focused on the opponent at hand. But here, Don was on my lid
yesterday, and Don said that what he didn't understand is he was getting on the coach's show. He said, "Oh, it's great. Practice has been great. Everything's been wonderful. Yada yada." And he said, then he turns around and says they had to get on him about that. He goes, he was saying that he was told two different things. And I'm like, wow, for Don to say that, that's big. But I'm just not buying that they overlooked the team. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think that I hope not for a team's sake, but man, if they're starting to doubt things or just get down, because when a team starts to get down, buddy, that's a hard thing to reverse.
Yeah, we what got me is we effectively heard a similar excuse 2 years ago. In the 21 season, Indiana started the season ranked and proceeded to lay a 2-10 egg. We heard a lot of recriminations that offseason as the outlook or the mindset wasn't right during camp, during the summer. These guys overlooked the task at hand. After making the bowl appearance the year prior, they felt like they had made it, and they let off the gas, and they lost focus of what they were doing and what it meant. And the team's still suffering from that right now. And there are plenty of players that are on this roster. There are plenty of coaches on this staff, and there are plenty of administrators in the building who all were a part of that 21 season, and they saw the fallout. And we were told that wouldn't happen again. That's unacceptable. That everybody is fully cognizant and aware of the challenges and the opportunities in front of them, and they were going to take them serious. And what we heard after the game Saturday night was the exact opposite of that. Indiana football has never been in a position where they can overlook anybody. I don't care if you're playing Little Sisters of the Poor. I don't care who's on your schedule the next week. You don't overlook anybody ever.
Well, they've nearly lost so many non-com games. Kentucky, or Western Kentucky, rather, and there was another one.
The 4 wins the last 2 years. Keep in mind, it's taken missed game-winning field goals against Western Kentucky, against Michigan State, and now Akron in order to win those games. Dumb luck, And let's be honest, we've seen the kick be good, we've seen the kick be bad. At the end of the day, it's just dumb luck, and Indiana's been on the right side of those kicks here recently. But when you have such razor thin margins, you can't put yourself in that position. I don't care if it's against Michigan State. I don't care if it's against Akron. But this is the very reason that we just canceled the Louisville contract going forward, is because they needed more bye games to put wins in the column. And when you're paying teams the amount of money we are for these bye games, when you're buying yourself out of pre-existing contracts with FBS opponents so that you can get more of these cupcakes on the schedule, and then you turn around and lay that kind of an egg, I'm sorry. I have a hard time accepting that this is a serious football program right now, because let's be honest, they're not behaving like serious programs do. They're just not. This is a run first team by admission that obviously can't run the ball. This is a defense that I thought was going to be the strength of the program this year, and proceeded to let the fifth ranked, or predicted to be the fifth team in the Mid-American Conference, run roughshod over them, outgain them 170% in total yards. Just absolutely unacceptable in every facet of the game. And maybe it's an aberration. Maybe this team really is the second half team we saw at Lucas Oil Stadium. But they continue to be the Indiana team we've seen for the last several years, in as much as they prove that they can be incapable of executing what should be the simplest, the most rudimentary facets of what they're doing. And that's just beating the dog crap out of a far inferior opponent. And they look like they were the lesser team, quite honestly. And, it's correct. There's a lot of football left to be played this year. But it certainly, not only does it not inspire confidence, quite the opposite. It's pretty problematic right now on a number of fronts. And there's not a whole lot of time to get the ship righted, because you're now in the teeth of the Big Ten schedule, and there's absolutely no mercy going to be shown. They don't care. You better come, and you better bring your best, because it's going to be a long season. And for a program that's got 2 Big Ten wins over the last 2 years, things are getting late early for this Indiana program right now. And we've all seen what it's like when hope is lost and the season is basically in the can before it's ever really begun. And it's not a place that anybody wants to be. Certainly not the players and the coaches. Certainly not the fans, and certainly not the people that have to do this for a living, because it makes it a pretty miserable experience for everybody. So perhaps they can pull up before things crash and burn. But with so many issues just glaringly obvious right now for this program, I'm hard pressed to see what changes can be made now that impact what we're seeing, because the offense is just way too off schedule for where you would expect it to be. For as much talent as it has, there's just zero identity right now. And if you don't know who you are and what you're trying to do, it's going to be really hard to go out there and leverage that. And it very much looks like an offensive drift. And, as we've seen in years past, that can very quickly spill over to the defensive side of the ball when those guys are fighting and clawing to get the ball back in the offense's hands. And you continue to go 3 and out series after series after series after series. It can totally suck the oxygen out of the defense. And it's just a combination for disaster.
Absolutely. And Tom Allen is a defensive mind, a really, really good defensive mind. And in my opinion, I think he should be a defensive coordinator, because he would be a hell of a one, like he was for Indiana. And Indiana was about to be really good. They had it set up with Kevin Wilson at handling the offense, and Tom on the defense, and then unfortunately that went awry. That was not because of IU, but that was a turning point of making a hire that to me should not have been made. It should have been another hire like Kevin Wilson. But regardless of that,
or Kalen DeBoer for that matter.
Well, Kalen DeBoer should have been offered the head coaching job. Indiana would never, ever, ever in a million years do something that is guaranteed beneficial. Just won't do it. It's just not an Indiana thing to do. It's got to be we got to do the right thing. Or we got to do this. It's whatever it is. But under Tom Allen, he's had 4 offensive coordinators. Besides Kalen DeBoer, who was there for a year, first was Mike DeBoard, who was, I called him DeBoring. He was awful. Then before it happened, I raged, do not make Nick Sheridan the OC. Well, they made Nick Sheridan the OC, and it was awful, excluding the COVID year. Then you follow that up with Walt Bell. I just think that his complete lack of offensive understanding is not – it hurts. It hurts desperately because as a head coach, I don't think he can be as involved in making the right decisions at crunch time. I think his exuberance prevents him from being locked into what's going on, and a head coach should be 2 steps ahead of where you are, what's happening. And instead of running down the sideline celebrating with somebody, stay in the game. But that's just my thoughts. But I don't know.
I think Walt Bell is as advertised. When you look at his past history over the course of his career, you're basically getting what you bought. He is who he is. I mean, let's be honest. This is a coach who's so far his play calling seems to be right on brand with what his record shows at his past stops. And I don't know, obviously I'm not privy to those conversations as to how we got here or what the selection pool even looked like at that point. But you very much get the sense that this was, I assume that they made the best hire available. And, unfortunately, that probably is a testament to where the program is right now. And it certainly doesn't help when you've got Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix out there really setting the bar for college football this year, not the least of which on the offensive end. And
I was talking about Michael. How about that, though? I mean, how happy I'm ecstatic to say I want him to win the Heisman. He is my number 1 candidate right now, and I hope to God he wins. And it would be so awesome.
No, it's just salt in the wound, though, at this point. As much as I've enjoyed watching his success out west, it just every time you see a highlight package of him, recognizing why he and his family made the decision they did, and the wisdom in it. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to struggle to get program changing talent and to retain it without some wholesale changes right now with what you're seeing. Because honestly, I mean, what kid sees this offense and says, yeah, sign me up for that. I want to be a part of this. Jalen Lucas, probably IU's, maybe Taven Jackson, biggest addition of the offseason. That's great. You've got 2, high caliber, high skill players. What are you doing with them? What have you put around them that's going to put them in a position to succeed? Because quite honestly, it's going to be increasingly easy for defenses to key on what little Indiana does consistently with some degree of success and take that away from them. And, even more so, there's going to be a whole lot more physical abuse that's going to be honed in on them. And as we've seen in the past, it doesn't take a whole lot on the injury side to completely throw things into chaos for Indiana when you have so little depth and a skill level that's obviously not on par with the competition in this conference right now. So it's you are seeing the fruits of the seeds that IU has sown when it comes to being incapable of playing competent offense, of keeping skilled players in a position where they can succeed on the field, and whether that's keeping the quarterback clean. And credit to the offensive line, they've done a much better job this year than they have in years past as far as protecting the quarterback. But for what? Because honestly, the play calling is really not making the most of that additional protection. We continue to see them struggle to put Jalen Lucas in position where he can actually impact the game. Getting him into space, and I fear it's going to be predictably easier going forward, unless there's some major changes made. Because quite honestly, they're just not doing that much well enough to really. To put a more comprehensive offensive package together. So let's see what happens this week. I do think there's very much a chance what the team we saw against Louisville in the second half is maybe more representative of who they are, what their baseline capabilities are. But man, you play a game like that, like they did this last Saturday, and everybody
40 to 10.
Everybody who has doubts, it just becomes more justified in them. Quite simply because, you are what your record says. You are what the tape shows, and right now it shows a team that's not very serious about playing winning football. So, let's see what happens this week. But man, God help everybody if it goes as I fear it may.
And nothing can be done about it. There's a $20 million buyout that is not going away until after December 1st of 2024. Which means after next season, nothing is going to. I mean, the only thing that could change is a new offensive coordinator. But who in the hell is going to come take that position when the head coach is probably going to be a lame duck?
Yeah, it's an untenable position, and it's one that's wholly of IU's creation. And let's be real about that. When you have contracting parties, the burden is on the party that writes the contract in order to represent their interests. And I understand the enthusiasm and the excitement surrounding the program when that extension was written. But pragmatically, Indiana has handcuffed themselves in the most devastating way here, because for a program that is on paper looks really financially strong right now, with the addition of the Big Ten money and everything else. Let's not forget the reality of the situation. It takes one weekend at Ann Arbor or in Columbus or over in Happy Valley for them to generate as much as Indiana does in the season's worth of home games. And the resource war is not going to go away. It's just going to get more stark in the haves and the have-nots. And this is the dangerous part of the season, when you start seeing those seats becoming more and more sparsely filled, and it's just less revenue, it's less energy, it's less excitement, it's apathy, and you see it in stark contrast on nights like last Saturday. When you're barely filling half the stadium with seats, and that's during the good weather games. That's against the teams they're supposed to win against. So. I hate being overly negative about it, but let's be real. It's not a very healthy program at the moment. And I'm not sure that there's anything immediately available to fix it. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, wins go a long way. You get a win.
Winning cures everything. I always say that. Winning cures everything.
It does. And hope is not all lost, but don't get me wrong. They're running out of opportunities here real fast in order to increase the win total, which I think they have to do. I think you have to continue to show gains to have proof to, yourselves. Forget the rest of the world. That locker room has to prove to themselves that what they're doing has them on the right path to get to the goals that they've set for themselves. And you have to be able to sell that hope to the future classes, that there's something big happening and you can be a part of it. Backsliding is not the way to do that. So you've got to get wins. You got to get them soon. And you got to start stacking them up here, because you look at the schedule going forward, and it's just that the degree of difficulty just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. And again, I'm not sure I have a lot of confidence that they're fit for this fight, because they just don't look like they're ready for prime time.
Sean says the new coach must have a new commitment from the board of trustees. A new coach will not matter without a commitment to catch up to other programs and renovate facilities. Major cash influx or stay exactly the same. A lot of truth to that. Indiana has to commit to football. I'm tired of the lip service. Well, we close the ends in. I don't care. Nobody cares about the ends. They care about what's going on that field. That's where the focus needs to be, but they do need to modernize the stadium. They do need the suites that go across the top, and that way those corner seats that sit empty already as it is, just make a all the way across like every other decent stadium has. But yeah, there has to be a commitment instead of lip service, and I don't know that that's ever been the case. So it's going to be, how are you going to get a good coach to come to Indiana? And I'm not saying that there's a change. So I'm not suggesting that there is a change or going to be a change. But if there were, or how would you get someone to come in if they don't see the commitment?
I'll tell you what, I fully recognize there's a whole lot of factors that go into building modern programs today. I've been to many stadiums. I've seen what the other side lives like. And yes, there's a ton of things Indiana can do to get back, to get closer to that level. At the end of the day, though, in all my years, my decades of being in business, the one thing I've learned is, your greatest resource is always going to be your human resources. It's the people that make the program. And you want to talk about commitment, get a staff that's capable of winning, that's capable of leading, developing, recruiting, and getting the most out of its program's potential. I think it absolutely has to start, and honestly, I think it ends there, because you can look across the country, and there have been programs nationwide that have been savvy in the way that they've staffed their personnel, that have been able to effectuate change in a relatively short period of time without all the bells and the whistles and the trappings. Yes, it's certainly part of the wars in college football right now, the facilities wars. But honestly, it's the people inside the building. Get the right people in place, retain them, because that's where Indiana's really struggled here. A lot of folks act like that hasn't happened. Indiana's actually done a great job sporadically in recent years of getting the people it needs. The challenge is once they demonstrate that success, they're off to the bigger, better jobs. And Indiana's got to find a way to stop that. Now, part of that is you've got to find a way that you can, maintain some semblance of continuity throughout the program, despite some of those changes. And this is a program that, as you mentioned earlier, goes through coordinators about like my high school son goes through sweatshirts. It's far too frequent. It's far too inconsistent from year to year. And you figure out how to stop that, how to fix that. And I think a lot of the other things tend to take care of themselves.
Yeah. Another thing that sticks out to me, I don't know, and I hate to be negative about this, but I don't know if anyone has made more bad hires, period, than Indiana University, all the way back to Mike Davis. You got Mike Davis, Kelvin Sampson, the Tom Crean extension, the Archie Miller era, the millions of dollars just on that side is staggering.
Yes and no. I mean, Kelvin Sampson's one of the best basketball coaches in the nation. He's just absolutely the wrong person. He's just the wrong person for that job where that was. And, that's where Indiana tried to make a bad hire
because he was coming off of probation, or he was on probation, and it was just a dumb hire. He's probably the best coach Indiana's had since Bob Knight, to be honest with you.
From an X&O standpoint, I think that's true. Yes. And, Kevin Wilson's probably very similar. Just a brilliant offensive mind. There's no doubt about it. But Kevin Wilson is who he's always been. The guy that IU hired was, and later fired, was exactly who he was at Oklahoma. Indiana just kind of like Kelvin Sampson, was so fixated on the hire that they didn't recognize where they were hiring for, and the incongruency between the personnel and the place that you were going to put them in. They were bound to fail just because of tunnel vision, I guess, or I don't know how you want to call it, but the absolute wrong man at the right time. And I get what they were doing. It's just you knew it wasn't going to work in a place like Indiana. And part of it's Indiana's got to figure out who they are and what they want to be. If you want to live in this ivory tower where you graduate 100% of all your players and nobody ever makes the police blotter for doing things the college kids do, and all we're doing is homework and Bible study and everything else. And I'm not slamming any of that, but Indiana wants to have its cake and eat its too there. And they have too many times. Most ball programs are pretty comfortable in admitting we're a ball program. We're here to win basketball games. Yes, we like our guys to lead with character, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And a lot of transgressions tend to slide in the name of winning. And I'm not saying that's right. That just seems to be the way that most schools operate. This is a business. Whether or not they want to admit it, whether or not they want to call the athletes employees, it is what it is. And I think that's becoming increasingly clear as amateur athletics continue to evolve. But Indiana loves to win, not just in the field, but they love to win the press conference. They love to win the graphics. They love to hang all things that Indiana does that make them feel good about who they are. I don't know that changes, but at the end of the day, I do know that they have continuously put themselves in positions that are untenable. Hiring people that aren't going to work here, hiring people that when you're hiring a guy that's coming off the 93rd ranked offense, he's probably not going to be a top 20 offensive coordinator just because he came here. It's just not the way it works. So
absolutely. Well, brother, I appreciate you so much. I know we got to let you go, but thank you and you have a great week, brother.
You as well. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you very much. Chronic Hoosier here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. More coming up. Breaking. We'll be coming back after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Do 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 dooby doo doo. Man, I hate to be negative like that.
It's just the way it's been.
Well, it's just the way it is. Yes, I don't know how many people actually know this, but IU did. Newt Rockne wrote a letter to Indiana looking for an assistant football coaching job. And they said, no, thank you. We don't need any help. The rest, as they say, and now you know the rest of the story.
Like, you were really on point when you were saying the bad decisions in coaching, hiring. But I'll let you go live again if you have any rants to continue, but we go live. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Hope everything is going well for you. It is for us. It's been a fun day as always. Indiana, of course, hitting the road recruiting. Liam McNeely still the target that they're waiting. I think is going to be the first one to fall. Rob Cassidy from Rivals.com has said, hey, I normally don't do this when it's down to two teams, especially in Indiana and Kansas. He goes, but I'm calling it right now for Indiana. So that's a great sign. Most people think that's going that way, but that doesn't mean jack. I've learned that. I've seen it happen too many times with guys you think are going to go to this place, and then, but I think that personally, I don't think Bill Self is getting Liam McNeely away from Indiana. I just don't. Dairy Queen, I'm not sure. I know Liam was asked about, that. He goes, hey, that would be great, but you know what? At the end of the day, I've got to do what's best for me, and he's got to do what's best for him. And that's why these guys don't always go to the same place. The need. They're different positions. So the need could be different. The opportunity could be different. There are just too many variables that weigh into that. So, but there's I don't know how long he's going to wait to make a decision, but I don't expect it until November, I think. He's taken his visits and everybody's still contacting him, talking to him. That's got to get tiring after a while. At some point I'd want to say, okay, that's cool. You guys can just go, not, I don't want to say leave me alone, but just let me have my space now. I'm sure that doesn't happen because they want to maintain that constant daily relationship, talking or whatever. But I do think that he's going to be the first recruit that falls. Now, who else is going to follow him? That's a big question. Can they get Dairy Queen? Yeah, they can. I'm sure his visit went very well, is also because Indiana does a great job on these visits. Little things like Adam, and I'm daggone blanking on his last name right now, that is on the staff, Adam Howard, pulling up that Whataburger flag that Liam McNeely had in one of the videos. That's thinking outside of the box. I guarantee you Liam McNeely is a Whataburger fan, or he wouldn't have put that flag banner on, whatever the hell you want to call it. He wouldn't have done that. So, and man, oh man, I hope he would bring a Whataburger franchise. That would be, whoo. He's like, hey man, that's, I'll be your number one customer, your spokesman, whatever. Might even give you free advertising for that. Oh yes, Kansas has multiple Whataburgers, Tanis. The last Whataburger I was at was in Kansas City, when Indiana played at Kansas last year, heading towards the airport, stopped at one that was part of several owned by the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback. Golly, I'm blanking on so many names today. My mind is going wild. But anyway, he's a franchisee of Whataburger. And I could see, but I don't know how much it would take to open a franchise, a Whataburger. But we can find out, huh? How much would a Whataburger franchise cost? I don't know if he could come up with that kind of money, because that's going to be a lot, I would think. And it's not like he's going to be able to run it, because I know Scott Laskowski, John Laskowski, those guys are big Culver guys. And I know how hard they work opening up those restaurants and then being in them once they're open for a long time. Yeah. Mr. Mahomes there. David says Whataburger's overrated. Ha! Nope. Sorry. Not at all. But a Whataburger, oh my God. The total investment required to open a Whataburger restaurant, let me give you a second to take a guess, but it's $1.2 million. What? Whataburger requires franchisees to have a minimum net worth of $12.5 million and commit to opening at least 5 locations in 5 years. Now, that's changed probably because they were bought within the last few years by a company out of Chicago to broaden their reach, because they are mainly in Oklahoma and Texas, some in Florida. But that's amazing to me. We're not going to getting we're not getting a Whataburger franchise anytime soon, peeps. I can tell you that. Jeez. But Indiana's going to get some good basketball recruits. It was 0-24 in the bank right now. It's not a rush because a lot of guys, as you can see, are taking much longer to make their decisions. They're allowed to take 6 official visits. Then you've got the unofficial visits. But it is, the reason is NIL. There's a lot to go over there. There's is probably that is probably as much of the equation as the school, the basketball, the coach, and all of that. If you've got an NIL program that's here, and a coaching and all the tradition, blah, 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 but the school is here, boom. And then you have one where maybe it's that, and the other way around where the school tradition are a little bit better than the NIL. It's what are they looking for? What they feel makes it better for them? There is so much for them to think about now. It's not just the school. It's not just the coach. It's not just the facilities. The NIL is such an important part of the decision-making for these guys. And I would love to see one of the big deals, just to have an understanding of how they're paid, when they're paid. I mean, you see guys like Shedeur Sanders drives a $180,000 vehicle. Now, I believe that is off of NIL money. It's nuts. I don't hate it for him. Congratulations. It's unbelievable, because some of these guys will make more money in college than they probably do when they leave. Shedeur Sanders expects, he should go on to the next level, you would think. It's not always the case, for whatever reason. And I guarantee you, how much NIL that dude is making compared to, say, Michael Penix. It would be interesting to see because Washington is a great football area. I mean, their crowds are amazing. And now they're having success, uber success. Wonder what that's like. 5 Less says Liam will have a multitude of deals at IU. He would be a bigger fish here. I don't know. Lawrence, Kansas is not exactly a metropolis. So, but I think you're talking about maybe the roster. But, man, no, whoever's good stands out. Talent just stands out without question. And 5 Less points out Shedeur is on national commercials. Yeah, he's got a lot of luck because his last name is Sanders. He's in a lot of commercials with Dion. Herbal says, will Sanders be good at the next level, though? Don't know. Absolutely have no idea. How many quarterbacks are in the league right now that you're like, wow, he's in the league? Some guys mature a little bit better. Some guys are mentally better able to handle that next layer. It's difficult. Some guys don't. I'm not talking about Shedeur. I'm just in general. It is sometimes just such a change that they don't make it. Size matters. Michael Penix, we've talked about him being so the injuries. Will he be able? He can't ever. Well, man, he's looking good now. But it's been a great day. I can't thank everybody enough. Of course, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network. As always, Chronic Hoosier. And we generally have Mike Niziolek with us, but he could not join us today. We'll try to get him scheduled back on another day, and look forward to talking to him. But I'm always grateful to talk to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. We are so appreciative of it, believe me, each and every day. Thank you to RC for filling in for John, the producer, today. We appreciate that so much. And we'll be back tomorrow to do it all again with another great lineup. Rick Bozich, of course, with us. Kyle Neddenrip. And we'll start things off with Dylan Sin, who was at that Notre Dame game, I believe, over the weekend. So looking forward to talking about that. So thank you guys very much. Go out and have yourselves a great day. And until then, tomorrow, I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.